Here's what I want to say, and this is, I think Adam Silver has summed up in the best way how we should be looking at this going forward. And I want to play this because Adam Silver, commissioner of the NBA, was asked about pausing the schedule a la what the NHL has done. And then I want to talk about the NHL pause. But let's get into what Adam Silver said on ESPN yesterday.
Right, and I mentioned that we're seeing a spike in COVID-19 cases around the world, but we're also seeing it in the NBA with upwards of 80 players testing into the COVID protocols with Christmas Day rapidly approaching. So are there any plans right now to stop or pause the season to allow for the spread to slow?
No plans right now to pause the season. We've, of course, looked at all the options, but frankly, we're having trouble coming up with what the logic would be behind pausing right now. As we look through these cases, literally ripping through the country right now, putting aside the rest of the world, I think we're finding ourselves where we sort of knew we were going to get to for the past several months, and that is that this virus will not be eradicated, and we're going to have to learn to live with it. And I think that's what we're experiencing in the league right now.
So let's pause there.
To be clear.
So, sorry, I want to clarify something. When I said good that the game was postponed, it's not because I'm a fraidy cat or whatever that some people are going to paint this as. Oh, you're afraid of the sniffles. It's that it's the Bulls against literally not the Raptors.
Well, yeah. So here's what my thinking is with this. You know, I think Adam Silver nails it. You know, we had this mentality when we started in the pandemic that if we, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, if we, stayed indoors, stayed away from each other, all the things that we did, there was a piece of the community and this piece that sort of implanted in everybody's head that somehow, some way, someday, COVID wouldn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. And COVID is not going to not exist.
No.
Is it going to be less severe? Sure. Are we going to have like a pill? There's a pill out there that Pfizer's working on, and there's actually a Canadian company that's working on an inhaler that will treat the actual disease. So here's the thing. Vaccines aside, we don't have a way to actually treat COVID.
No.
Like we could treat cancer, we could treat other things. We can't treat COVID yet, but we might get to the point where we can, and then all this stuff sort of goes away. It's like, well, take your inhaler, stay home for a couple of weeks, that whatever it is.
Medicine's an amazing thing. You know what I only found out this past year? My mom had tuberculosis.
Wow.
I did not know that.
Well, yeah, there's a vaccine for that now.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I think what we need to do, and it's not that I disagree with the NHL pause. I want to get to the NHL pause in a second. What we need to do is shift our focus from how do we stop this to how do we live with this. Mm-hmm. And the thing was last year when we didn't have any vaccines and we didn't have any way to soften I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but blunt the effects of COVID on a human being without a vaccine. When we did the bubbles and everything, that made sense because it's like we're trying to keep this out until we can figure out what the fuck to do here. Well, now we got a vaccine. We're all getting our boosters up here in Canada. I know in the States you can be triple vaxxed and whatever. Beyond all that, our job now needs to be, how do we get through this? So if the Raptors are all checking into protocol here, well, I understand the need to be extremely safe. But at a certain point, if people are asymptomatic, just like you can be asymptomatic with other viral infections, and I'm not trying to liken this to, the flu or something, because we've seen people who are deniers essentially be like, it's just the flu. It's not. We have to learn and deal with how to deal with this just being a part of our lives. And we're getting there with medicine. I don't think we're quite there yet, but that's got to be the focus going forward. And I think Adam Silver nailed it. He said, we can pause the league, but COVID's not going anywhere. That's not going to stop transmission within the players or within society at large. It's just not. Right? These guys, and Arash Madani made this point on Tim and Friends the other day, and I thought it was so fucking smart. He said, okay, so they're going to go home. The league's paused. They're going to go home. What are they going to do? They're going to hang out with family. They're going to hang out with friends.
Yeah.
They're going to do what everybody else is doing.
I think that's ultimately what they were trying to protect, to be honest.
What do you mean?
Like they didn't want to get trapped on the wrong side of the border.
Yes, and that for Christmas especially, and I get that.
Yeah, the NBA is less concerned about that. There's only one Canadian team, and also Christmas is different. They don't have a break. It's a big day, actually. It's a big sporting day for them. The NHL just doesn't have that.
Yeah.
So
I
don't really think it was a safety thing, to be honest.
Well, and so the NHL kind of posed it as that a little bit. And I think a lot of people were like, great, I'm so glad they're pausing it. They're pausing the season for 4 days, guys.
Yeah.
It's December the 22nd now. They're playing games on the 27th?
On Monday.
I believe so, yeah.
And their biggest thing is to make it to the Winter Classic. That's what Elliot and Jeff on the 32 Thoughts podcast were hammering that home, because they just need to make it to the Winter Classic and protect Minnesota and Dallas and make sure that those rosters are just competent enough to play it, because it's such a big sponsorship event. And at the end of the day, that's all that's driving this.
Do you remember that quote?
What is the quote?
From an unnamed player of another team.
What is it?
He's like, well, if it's so important, then bubble wrap them, pause them.
Right.
Like,
Which is what essentially they've done, because their games are done and they're going to come back and they're going to play that game because they need to fulfill the sponsorships. And
players are pissed.
the NHL is going to find a way to get in these 82 games.
Sure.
Like, the season's going to keep going.
Well, that's part of the reason why I'm just sort of shutting down and enjoying this little break.
Yeah.
Because I know an already condensed schedule is about to get even more squishy.
Well, and I have a hard time believing that they're going to just take February off.
No. Those 3 weeks will be used to make up these games right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those will all be games.
Yeah.
But like, how many? I have a hard time picturing what February is going to look like. But the point is, they're going to play all 82.
Yeah, of course they are.
They've missed 2 seasons of, well, 1.5 seasons of gate revenue. You know, you can't just give that up. You can't give up the TV money that the NHL is missing. They're trying to get back on schedule. They're trying to hit revenues. They need to play through this. And
also,
that's what they're going to do.
And as a society at large, we cannot continue to literally take people's livelihoods away from them, right? We have to find a way through this. I understand the dangers. You don't have to lecture me on that. I get it. But we also, our job as humans has always been, how do we overcome this? So that's the question now. How do we overcome and live with this? And I don't think we have all the answers yet, but I definitely think that's the focus. We need to be focused on that. We need to be looking at that. So to finish this conversation, this quote unquote pause that is for player safety, I don't take that for a second. I think it's obviously people want to be, like, I feel bad for Ilya Mikheyev. Here's a guy who hasn't played all season. He's in protocol now. Oh. So if he was going to spend Christmas somewhere, he's in fucking protocol. Like, it sucks, right? And so if you're in protocol, you're isolated, man. You're not going to see your family, even if you're at home. That sucks. And so the Ilya Mikheyev especially, I'm like, man, talk about a snake bite.
Well, and you know who got the hell out of Dodge at the right time? Kirill Semyonov, as long as you're talking about the Leafs.
Yeah.
That dude, I don't know if he saw a trend or whatever, but he's like, nah, I'm going to go back to Russia. And at least he got there.
Yeah.
You know what's a crazy thing with the Leafs and the pause that CJ brought up on the CJ show with CJ and Julian? Mitch Marner, who was injured pre-pause, you got to spend at least 10 games on LTIR. Mitch Marner is going to be healthy, but not be able to come off of LTIR because the Leafs,
they need to get rid of that
because they just don't fulfill the 10-game obligation.
I think it has.
Change.
I think
they're changing that.
I think that has,
because CJ said he still needs to fulfill the 10-game obligation.
Come on,
right? But today's truth is not necessarily tomorrow's.
Exactly. So is there new information?
I am trying to. Let me try to find it, but I'm almost positive I read it that they're going to, because that's unfair.
That's crazy.
It's unfair.
Well, to keep stars like Mitch Marner out of the league. Why would you want that?
But
who does that benefit?
He's injured, Adam.
Oh, yeah.
So he needs to spend the time on LTIR.
So what's the NBA has, while Steve's looking it up, the NBA has the 10-day contract for what?
Yeah, so the NBA instituted this new thing that's just taken the league by storm. It's so cool. So for every player that goes on to COVID protocol, you can sign any guy to fulfill that roster spot.
And what do they call it? There's like there's a title for it, like egregious harm, or
there's a specific name for what that player falls under, the category. It's now in the new CBA or whatever. But it's opened it up for all these guys who are on G League teams and on European leagues around basketball to just get a shot at playing in the NBA because of COVID. So all these guys are just trying to get their first shot at the NBA because all these rosters are decimated. And you're seeing a guy like Isaiah Thomas, who's been out of the league for like two years, get a shot with the Lakers because they just need a body, and they're like, okay, you got experience, come join us. So I don't know if it's gonna be, we see this a player who would never have a shot at the NBA, all of a sudden get a shot with a roster, and then now he's an everyday NBA player forever. But if a guy gets a shot because of COVID and then teams see that, oh, this guy might be good.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic thing to come out of all of this.
It's pretty cool, eh?
A guy who's never been given a shot, just a random Joe Schmo, is now given a shot, and now he gets to be on an NBA team.
I love that.
So much fun.
That's so much fun. There was a guy who played for Dallas last night who he came, after the game, he was like, I didn't even know what plays they were calling. He's like, but I've been playing long enough that I could figure it out. He's like, a pick and roll's a pick and roll. And like, he got 7 points and I think 5 assists. Like, he was amazing.
He wasn't on the team 48 hours ago.
Wow.
Why doesn't the league, why doesn't the NHL do that?
It's a fun little rule that they've instituted in the last couple of days.
So it's Kevin McGran tweeted, just learned that if he's healthy, Mitch Marner can play Leafs next game despite being on LTIR and missing only 6 games. The 4 missed because of COVID count toward the 10-24 requirement of LTIR. Apparently it was the case last year too. I just didn't encounter it.
10-24 is 10 games and 24 days.
Yes.
That's the minimum you got to spend on LTIR. So that's great that the league fixed that.
Also,
I mean,
enough with the 24 days. Come on.
No, it makes sense for.
But if you're pausing the
cap.
season, that has to go away.
Right?
yeah,
Which it does.
yeah, it's LTIR is easy enough to abuse.
Yeah.
Legally. But you can also
The 10-day contract is something the NHL needs to adopt. But we need to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it'd be cool. Well, I was thinking on the way here, like, okay, so it's a more condensed schedule. Guys are going in and out of protocol. You're going to need more depth. It's not necessarily a 10-day contract, but like, who would be potentially useful and could benefit from this is Josh Hosang.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he is tearing it up. He's been amazing with the Marlies.
He's been playing well. The Marley season is paused.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a bunch of forwards in protocol or injured or suspended,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a guy.
He doesn't have an NHL contract.
No,
right?
he doesn't. So they would have to sign him.
So he's got, and he said he's committed to staying with the Leafs organization.
I'm a little
he wants to be here.
confused as to how this works, but I think if they do sign him, he'd be placed on waivers. So
Yeah,
that's
like,
a
that's
little
gotta go away.
harrowing. I don't understand.
Well, he would be claimed because he's got 9 goals and 6 assists in 19 games.
No, not necessarily.
No, he'd be claimed.
But like,
Come on. Have you seen some of the highlights? They would claim Josh Hosang.
He's good.
Yeah.
He's good. But like, I think it was Evgeny Nabokov years ago. He was in Europe, signed a contract with, I think it was Detroit.
And then had to stick with the Islanders.
And the
right?
Islanders
Yeah.
stole him, and it's like, but I signed the contract with Detroit.
And he almost didn't report. But then he had a good season with
Like,
the Islanders,
imagine-
if I remember.
Imagine you interviewed with TD Bank, and you're like, I'm going to be a teller for TD Bank. And BMO was just like, you're a teller for us now.
Because once you sign the contract, you're open to everybody.
Yeah, and
What?
also our bank is nowhere near the bank that you thought you were going to work at. You were going to work across town. Like, what the fuck? This isn't what I agreed to at all. Yeah, well, we're going to pay you the salary that... Yeah, but you don't understand. This isn't what I agreed to.
Yeah, I think, again, a lot of these rules that they had, I think they're archaic anyway. But I think the pandemic is going to force some change, which is probably good. I honestly... you know how I feel about this. I want teams to spend more money on players. I always so more opportunities, and the PA will be 100% for this. It's the ownership that's not.
Oh, I
was
didn't
gonna
know
say-
Alan Walsh joined the show.
Right. Well, you know what's fucking funny now?
What do you think about Gary Bettman?
You know what's hilarious now is that when I talk about my views on what the cap could be and should be, people are like, "You're getting that from Walsh." I'm like, dude, I've been saying this for 6 years.
No.
Like, and by the way, Walsh is right.
Oh,
He's
is he?
right. Oh my god.
Drink more of that water.
Yeah.
For him, Adam. As a general manager myself, one thing that I'd like to see the NHL move during COVID is the 50 contract limit. Because I'm trying to sign guys, and like I'd like that limit to be adjusted if guys go on COVID protocol. Maybe if they don't count against the 50 contract limit, and then you can get some extra bodies within the organization.
This is why you need the... Like, what's wrong with two weeks? 2-week deal.
Why not? 14-day.
I don't know. PTO? Would that fall under PTO?
Sure.
I don't know.
They don't have. Do they have in-season PTOs?
I've never seen it.
I don't think that works.
I don't think I've ever seen
But
it.
like,
Well, you would think if any team would have taken advantage of that, it would have been the Leafs
oh yeah,
if they could.
You'd think so.
they got the money. Yeah, I would like to see something like a 14-day contract that doesn't count against your 50 contracts.
They sort of did that with Buddy, who has awful Twitter. Prust. Brandon Prust. He's I couldn't remember his name.
I think that's a pretty apt description.
Yeah, his Twitter's awful. But he was on a PTO, but then they like kept him for a month. And he just practiced with the team,
Just hung around.
but he didn't play.
That's like
You need guys who can play.
Tuukka Rask. Tuukka Rask is in Boston.
All right,
Tuukka Rask is on the Boston Bruins right now, but he isn't on the Boston Bruins. It's such a farce.
it's an enormous
He's at
farce.
practice.
Like